really interested in both the positive and the negative effects. Like when you were in hard competition training and you were doing cycles of Deca or Dianabol, wherever it was you were using. I know you were one of the, it's my understanding, I don't know if it's true, I'd like your answer. You were one of the first bodybuilders to experiment with growth hormone and...
Well, I don't think so. I used growth hormone in the early 90s and it had been used before that.
Okay.
I don't really think so. Growth hormone's another thing. Growth hormone can increase muscle mass and minimize body fat, but it's not, just because of the name, growth hormone, it sounds like it's, but combined with steroids, I think it took everything to a different level.
Okay.
Schwarzenegger and those guys in their 70s, they were just using steroids. Mm-hmm. When the growth hormone came in, I think it allowed people to get, to help them to get to a higher level. Perhaps it had an influence, but not huge,
Okay, so I mean, I'm quite interested to know, like you're in your competition phase, you're putting this stuff in your body, and I mean, personally, I don't make any judgments on that. I think you did what you had to do to peak in your sport. I'd just like to know what kind of things you experienced. Obviously, you became bigger and stronger and you healed more quickly, but were there any negatives? Did you ever get bad mood swings or what?
I guess that every drug there's negatives, but I can only speak from personal experience. For me, I took steroids on and off. From when I was competing at amateur competitions, British Championship level, up into professional level from 85 to 97 when I retired. So that's 12 years of fairly consistent use. And of course, athletes don't use the recommended dose of steroids. They use way more than their recommended dose. But I can say in all that period of time, I did probably get some side effects like water retention, some acne. Yes, your aggression levels definitely are higher, but it depends what you do with that aggression. I took it out, I utilized it for my training in the gym. You're more positive, you're more aggressive. That's great for training. But, if you're out somewhere and you have a few pints and you're in a club or something, it's probably not a good thing, And I've seen people that work in that environment, work on the doors and things like that. They get themselves into trouble, because of this. But it varies again from one person to another. We all know that alcohol can make people, lower their inhibitions and make them more aggressive. And, one guy can have a few pints and turn into a total aggressive asshole. Somebody else could be totally chilled, So it depends on the individual.
Because, the mainstream media would have us believe that, you say you cycled steroids for 12 years and you should have like a horn growing out of your forehead now, but you look like a relatively healthy guy. You look better than my dad did when he was 50.
I got to say, of any pharmaceutical drugs that you could take for 12 years, way over the dosage that's recommended, that's going to be a very mild drug. I mean, this is a hormone, I've got a friend who is now looking at a kidney transplant, and because he destroyed both of his kidneys. And he's a bodybuilder, and I asked him, no, it wasn't through steroids. I don't know anybody that's had, you'd have to really, really super abuse it and take the piss before you'd get anything severe side effects. This guy is talking about having a kidney transplant and losing his kidneys because he took Nurofen. And Nurofen is an over-the-counter drug. If you get a bottle of aspirin from the pharmacy now and drink that and take a whole bottle of aspirin, it'll burn through your stomach line and you'll die. Nurofen, this destroyed the guy's kidneys. And these are things you can get over the counter, So that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit, I think.
So hypothetical scenario, you mentioned you have a son. He came to you and said, Dad, I'm thinking of doing a cycle. You'd be cool with that?
Well, he's 28 years old, so that's already happened. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you decide, I tell people, look, if you're thinking about it, look at all the facts. Get as much information as you can, factual information. I mean, when I started doing it in the mid-'80s, there were a couple of underground books that were out there. I mean, photocopied. Underground steroid book from Dan Duchesne, that was probably the only thing out. And then there was another book, Anabolic Steroids in Sports, by Dr. James Wright, and both these guys I actually met as well. That was about it. I mean, there's no internet. No, there's just gym rumors and stuff. And actually back in the 80s, we were very cautious because we did think, shit, this stuff, I've heard it can damage your liver and all these things. And I was very lucky that I had a doctor that supervised all my blood tests and everything throughout the years. And there was never anything in those blood test results for him to show any concern and say, hey, you've got to give it a break, or you should stop doing this and everything. But if you've ever seen a film called Supersize Me, about a guy that ate McDonald's 3 times a day, after he did that for 2 weeks, his blood results were so off the chart, his doctor was begging him to stop.
Yeah, it's true.
So 2 weeks of eating McDonald's 3 times a day was much worse than me taking steroids for 12 years.